Taped from New Jersey, it's the SNL Nerds, the show where two comics from New Jersey nerd out over Saturday Night Live. I'm your co-host, John Trumbull.
And I'm your co-host, Darren Patterson.
Darren!
Was that a scream for help, or what?
Yes.
Did I?
Yes, it's all those things and more. It's been a weird week. So
you don't say why. What happened?
Not much. You know, lots of people dead, world on fire. You know, rioting in the streets. Literally rioting in the streets. Wow.
Yeah, it's bad out there. I feel like any minute I'm going to see a dog and cat living together, like literally, and that's when I'll know.
That is the state that we are in. I mean, really, if Zool came to Earth and started zapping people, and we had a giant marshmallow man wandering through the streets of New York City, would things be any weirder than they are right now?
No, I would welcome it.
Yes. I mean, because that would at least mean that we're coming to a climax on this stuff.
Yeah, the end is nigh.
Yeah.
Oh man. But yeah, guys, I don't know what to say. It's just insane out there. Everybody, please stay safe. Don't do anything crazy. And I don't know. I think the only thing I could say is it is a good thing that we're not doing the Daryl Hammond doc today, because I just think that would be too much heaviness.
Yeah. I think for the next few weeks at least, we have to lean into the stupid. We have to lean into the goofy, the stupid, the silly, the inconsequential. We need a nice escape. We need a nice outlet. And,
absolutely. Like this for the next few weeks, if not months, this show will act as an escape from the insanity that is the real world. This is like you be coming up for a breath of air after you've been swimming underwater for so long.
Yeah, we're not qualified to do much as comedians, but we can provide hopefully like a little oasis of fun and humor and entertainment, and we are going to do our best to provide that.
Yes, we're doing the Lord's work.
Yes. So, speaking of outlets and escape, you were talking about you're catching up on a few TV shows or introducing yourself to some TV shows that you hadn't seen before. What are your outlets in the world right now?
Well, I mean, I've been watching. There's 3 shows I've been watching. One is connected to SNL.
Okay.
So I'll save that for last. One show I've been watching is on Hulu, the show Rami, which I actually enjoy quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know much about it. It definitely has a vibe of some other shows that I really like Atlanta and Master of None. But it also reminds me a lot of Louis, too. And for those that don't know, it's basically Rami Youssef is a comedian from Jersey, and in his show he plays a fictionalized version of himself living in Jersey with his parents. He's a Muslim American, and he respects the Muslim faith and the religion, but he's also he's also a young millennial. So it's like basically him trying to balance both worlds. Like he respects his religion and the past and heritage, but at the same time he's a young kid who likes to party and do stuff that youngins do. So it's just like him basically trying to balance the two worlds, be a better person, trying to find enlightenment. And it's a really good show. It was I really dug it. It definitely, like I said, it had that vibe of like the show Louis. So, it takes place in New Jersey, which we always love here. So if you're into that, I suggest you watch Rami. Yeah. So cool. I've watched.
Yeah, I've not seen that show.
Yeah. It's a show. It's a good show. I dig it. I've been watching that. I've also watched The Boys on Amazon, which is another show I really dug. If it's on Amazon, if you don't know the concept of that, it's basically like it's a sort of a world where superheroes are very commonplace, and the way they get treated is more like what you call it, like celebrities or athletes, where they kind of have this impunity to do whatever they want a little bit. And one of the groups is of superheroes is called the Seven. They're like seven superheroes that like patrol the world and save the world, but like to them, saving the world and doing serving justice, it's more of a job than an
Mm-hmm.
actual what they want to do, because the seven is also headed up by this big corporation, and the corporation kind of lends them out to where they need to go. They also have like a lot of movie deals and endorsements and stuff that like an athlete would have. So it's basically like that. Like what would happen if a corporation took a hold of all these superheroes and kind of lent them out to save the world and make appearances and stuff. And what would happen if superheroes were more interested or cared more about their endorsement deals and how well their movies are doing at the box office than they do actually serving justice.
Yeah, yeah. I'm haven't watched the show. I'm a bit familiar with the comic book that it's adapted from by Garth Ennis, and I think it was Derek Robinson was the artist on that. Um, yeah, yeah. So yeah, I mean, I know that the comic gets pretty hardcore, and I understand the series is kind of hardcore too, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's not for the squeamish. There's a lot of ultra violence. There's a lot of it gets dark. It
Yeah.
gets very dark, but it's also very well done and very excellent. So and also so the show kicks off is what happens is a superhero accidentally kills this one guy's girlfriend in the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
and of course they have a press release and he says he's sorry, but the guy of course is really upset. He wants justice because the superhero, when he accidentally killed his girlfriend, seemed to be on something, because
Mm-hmm.
it's basically a world where like superheroes are kind of shitty, like real people are, or like
Yeah.
athletes and celebrities are, and like if something happens to if a superhero does something accidentally, it gets covered over by the big corporation, and everything gets swept under the rug. So the guy whose girlfriend gets killed wants justice, so he meets up with another guy, and they form this this group called the Boys, where they keep superheroes in check from doing all their wild, insane shit. And
Yeah.
it's pretty ultra violent. It's I mean, I can't even describe the things I see on that show, but it's also really well done too.
Cool. Cool. And what was the show with the SNL connection that you're checking
Ah,
out?
the show with the SNL connection I've been checking out is on Amazon as well. It only lasted a year. It's the show Forever with Maya Rudolph and Fred Armisen.
Oh, I don't know much about Forever. What's that like?
It's really. Have you seen the commercials for it?
I don't think so. No.
Oh wow! All right. Well, I mean, it was only. I don't know if I should say it now because like two things happen in the first two episodes that are like really if, big spoilers. Like
Okay.
because like when I saw commercials for the show, like they basically advertise it as Fred Armisen and Maya Rudolph. They're older married couple who've been married for a while, and now they're in that kind of stage of their marriage where it becomes very kind of humdrum, and they just do the same things over and over again. That stagnant part of the marriage. But they never tell you about what happens at the end of the first episode or the second episode, because they want it to be a surprise. But that
Hmm.
surprise, but I don't know. That surprise is also kind of like the hook of the show, because like I feel like if more people knew about the big surprise at the end of the first and the second one, then they would be more. Then they would have maybe checked it out more. But it's hard to describe the show without giving away that those two things. But I mean, either way, it's an interesting show. It was created by Alan Yang, who worked on Parks and Rec, and
Hmm.
yeah, like I said, it's only on for one season. It got canceled after a year, so there's only 8 episodes. So I would say watch Forever. I'm not going to tell you what the you'll know it when you see it, but at the end of the first and second episodes, two big things happen that reshape the whole show. So that's all I'll say.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. I've been going through the series Community again, and I finished like the over the last couple of weeks. I finished the first three seasons, and I'm now in the fourth season, which is the first time I've watched that since it first aired. Which was the if you're a fan of Community, it's the season that they did without the creator Dan Harmon, and it shows. It's
Yeah,
It's not. I wouldn't say it's bad, but it's just off. It's not what the show was, and it doesn't have the driving force behind it. So it's
Yeah.
it's come to become known among community fans as the gas leak year, because when Dan Harmon came back to the show in the 5th season, the way he covered all the things he didn't like, or the people acting out of character or whatever, he just said, Greendale, the community college that the show takes place in, had a gas leak for the entire year, so it made people act weird, which it's a good way to get past it and move on, I guess. So
yeah, that season, from all the diehard fans say, yeah, that season of Community is very much like the Dick Ebersol years of Community.
Yeah, that might be a good analogy for it, and I'm looking forward to watching seasons 5 and 6, because I watched season 5 I think like once when Dan Harmon came back, but I certainly haven't rewatched it like I have the first 3 years, and I've hardly seen any of the 6th season at all, because they originally did that for Yahoo's streaming service, which just did not really take off. And I think I saw the first episode of that, but not anything beyond that. So I haven't seen most of the last season. I'm looking forward to getting to that.
Yeah, I actually remember watching the very last season on Yahoo, and yeah, it's definitely. I mean, it's good, but it's not what it was. Mm-hmm. It's okay. Yeah, so like, I mean, if I had seen that series and not known about the greatness of the past seasons, I would have been like, oh, it's a really good show. But like, after now knowing what it was and seeing it, now that season, I would have been like, yeah, this isn't, yeah.
Yeah. It's, I don't know. It's going to be weird to see if, it'll be interesting to see if the show ever totally gets its groove back. I don't know if it did or not, but we'll see. But God, I love those first 3 years.
They're pretty perfect.
Yeah. And it just gets weirder and weirder as it goes on, which is always fun.
Yeah. Weird is fun.
And speaking of weird, we're here to talk about a movie with some SNL connections. We're going to talk about Christopher Guest's A Mighty Wind, which is all about folk singing of the 1960s reuniting. And I got the description on the back of the DVD, because this is one that I own. So let me read that. In A Mighty Wind, director Christopher Guest reunites the team from Best in Show and Waiting for Guffman to tell the story, co-written by Eugene Levy, of 60s-era folk musicians who, inspired by the death of their former manager, get back on the stage for one concert in New York City's Town Hall. Levy and Catherine O'Hara are Mitch and Mickey, once the sweethearts of folk music until their bitter separation. Guest, Michael McKean, and Harry Shearer are classic folk trio The Folksmen, and Parker Posey, John Michael Hakens, and Jane Lynch anchor a color-coordinated, harmonizing Newflet, the New Main Street Singers. Joining the musicians are Bob Balaban, Ed Begley Jr., Jennifer Coolidge, Paul Dooley, Michael Hitchcock, Don Lake, Larry Miller, Jim Piddock, Deborah Thieker, and Fred Willard, who all work to revive folk music in this uniquely touching comedy. So, part of the reason we decided to do this was because one of the stars of the film, Fred Willard, he unfortunately passed away just in the last couple weeks.
Yes.
And he's a big part of this movie, and it's very much in his wheelhouse. He was always really good at playing these very oblivious idiots, and that is certainly what Fred Willard does in this movie.
That's him at his best. I mean, I've said it before, and I'll say it again. The one scene in this movie that we'll probably talk about later is just, I mean, my lord, it's one of the funniest things I've ever seen on a movie.
Okay. So, shall we dive in?
Yes, dive into A Mighty Wind. Came out May 9th, 2003. Directed by Christopher Guest, written by Christopher Guest and Eugene Levy. I'd say one of the best movies in the Christopher Guest universe of film, the GCU. The CGU.
Yes, this might be my favorite in the CGU. I certainly like it better than Best of Show. I haven't seen Waiting for Guffman in forever, but it's at least on a par with Waiting for Guffman, if not better than Waiting for Guffman. I still haven't seen For Your Consideration. I need to check that out someday.
I remember watching that. It was good, but it definitely has like a more serious, somber tone than I was expecting. And so, yeah, I remember a lot of people are kind of turned off by that. And I haven't seen Mascots yet. The one that went straight to Netflix. But I
Yeah,
heard
I
mixed
haven't
things
seen
about
that
that.
either. So, but this was a very well received movie. It's got an 87% on Rotten Tomatoes, 75% audience score. So I would say, yeah, people, they generally like it. Um, there's a very nice quote here in the critic reviews from Nev Pierce from BBC.com, and it says, "Quote not available." So
Wait, what?
that is like the topper. If you go on to the Rotten Tomatoes page for A Mighty Win, the very first quoted review just says, "Quote not available."
Oh Lord! Quote not.
Uh,
I
but he gives it 2 out of 5 stars, so I guess he wasn't too high on it.
Yeah, wow! I should have made that my high school yearbook quote.
Yeah, yeah. But
Class of '95.
yeah, I mean, it's told in Christopher Guest's usual sort of mockumentary style. He kind of took what Rob Reiner did with This Is Spinal Tap and kind of ran with it in his own right. And by this time, he had this solid repertoire company of actors that he would just plug into the various roles in his movies. And the movie opens up with a news report about the death of Irving Steinblum, who was the manager of all these folk singers in the 1960s. And it just sort of gives you a quick briefing of who he was, what he was about, and it introduces you to the various characters of the movie. And
Right.
and
It's a
then
good way to introduce all the. It's a good way to introduce kind of all the folk acts you're about to see coming up, and in one
yeah,
nice little quick chunk.
exactly. It gets the lion's share of the movie's exposition out of the way in a pretty efficient way. Um, the only thing that's missing is somebody coming in and be like, "Boss, you got to come see this." No, it just right in with that little newscast with giving the exposition, and I think that's a real newscaster at the beginning, if I remember correctly, because he looked really familiar.
Oh, was it his first rodeo?
The let's see, the cast is in credit order on IMDb, and it's Jim Moray as a newscaster. Let me see. Well, no, actually, he is an actor, so he's not a real life newscaster. So, but he doesn't. He has played a lot of newscasters and reporters apparently. So that's what most of his IMDb page is.
Oh, okay, it's like the Perd Hapley of films.
Exactly. He's like the Perd Hapley of films.
Right. I mean, I can't remember that actor's name. He does play a lot of like news anchors. I just remember his name, but like I just know him as Perd.
I first saw him as Perd Hapley on Parks and Recreation. So whenever he plays like a serious newscaster, I can't take him seriously because I'm like, that's Perd Hapley. Like he popped up on Supergirl because the guy's been a newscaster in real life, so he knows the cadence that a newscast should be done in. But I'm seeing him as a straight newscaster on Supergirl, and it's just like that's Perd Hapley. I'm totally out of the show now. But anyway, so Irving Steinblum has passed away, and Bob Balaban is playing his son, Jonathan Steinblum, who decides to do a tribute concert to him at Town Hall, and he's going to bring together all the acts that Irving, his dad, had such a hand in making these acts. And so we've got the folksmen, who are Harry Shearer, Christopher Guest, and Michael McKean, the same guys who did Spinal Tap. We got the Main Street Singers, who are now the New Main Street Singers, which is a group of 9 folks, and they're like a folksy group, like a very, very pure, very Christian, very Osmond. Apparently, they were a parody of the New Christy Minstrels, which was a folk band from the 60s, whose many former members, according to IMDb trivia, included Kenny Rogers, Kim Carnes, and Barry McGuire. So,
oh, Kim Carnes, Benny Davis eyes. Oh shit.
Yep.
All right, I rock with that.
Yep. And then the other act is, of course, Mitch and Mickey, played by Eugene Levy and Catherine O'Hara, who are sort of, well, let's see. They were like the romantically attached folk duo, and they had a very famous song called "Kiss at the End of the Rainbow," where at the end of that song they have a kiss, and it's very sweet.
Yeah.
Very sweet. Yeah.
they're kind of like the folk version of like Lindsey Buckingham and Stevie Nicks, I'd say.
Yes, with all that implies.
With all that implies.
Yeah. And so we sort of, over the course of this mockumentary, we follow these fictional groups as they reunite and they converge in New York for this big tribute concert.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty simple premise for the entire movie. It's just like, oh, this manager died who, oversaw all these bands. Let's get them together for one big concert, and then that's pretty much it. Then we just go and sort of get the backstory of each of the bands and like kind of what they've been up to, and we just see them kind of rehearse for the big show and just kind of riff off each other.
Yeah. And there's a cameo early on in this movie as we see the original Main Street Singers on like one of their album covers. And I'm wondering if you noticed this, that there's actually an SNL cast member in the original Main Street Singers. And did you notice
John Trumbull. Not only did I notice that, I wrote it down in my notes.
Nothing gets by you, Darren Patterson.
Look at you, just in my mind, all in my head. Yeah. We see one of the original Main Street Singers was Mary Gross from the Dick Episode years, which I just mentioned. It all comes together.
Yeah, and she was on the show. I believe she had some overlap with when Harry Shearer and Christopher Guest were regulars on the show, because she kind of she was there in both the Eddie Murphy era and in the Billy Crystal, Harry Shearer, Christopher Guest era, and Marty Short era.
Right. Actually, I expected to see her, like, in this movie in some capacity, but she's just on the old album covers, which it's like, oh, I would like to see what she's doing now.
Just a quick visual cameo, but it's cool that she's in there. And the other one from the original Main Street Singers is Paul Dooley, the great character actor Paul Dooley, who, I mean, you've seen in a million things. Paul Dooley, he's just one of those, hey, it's that guy, and he's just terrific.
Yes, I remember seeing him, and it's like, oh yeah, that guy. Like you said, but I didn't, like, if you asked me to name a movie he was in, I would totally blank. Well,
I mean, like some of his famous roles were he was the dad in Breaking Away, that great movie about the cutters in Indiana. And they have the big bike race. He runs the used car lot in town. He's wonderful in that movie. He's the dad in 16 Candles. And he played Wimpy in Robert Altman's movie of Popeye.
Whoa, that's that. I don't. Do you remember seeing the Popeye the film? I remember kind of liking it as a kid, but I also remember thinking this movie's kind of weird.
Yes to both. I saw it as a kid, and it is kind of weird. Yes, it is a movie version, and it's a movie version of Popeye. And it's directed by Robert Altman, of all people. For years, I have wondered, how did Robert Altman end up directing Popeye? And the best I can come up with is people mutter under their breath in early Popeye cartoons and in Robert Altman movies. So maybe that's how they came about it. I don't know.
Like, this guy really knows how to shoot people muttering. Maybe we should have him do this Popeye.
Exactly. But I mean, the casting in that movie is pretty spot on. You got Robin Williams as Popeye. You got Shelley Duvall as Olive Oyl, because she'd worked with Robert Altman a lot. Paul Dooley as Wimpy. The guy who played Brutus, amazing, like Dead Ringer. I don't know his name, but I think it was like Robert Altman's grandson who played Sweepy, who's just literally one of the cutest babies ever committed to film.
Oh, little baby. But yeah, I remember watching that movie as a kid and being like, I like it, kind of like it, but this definitely ain't normal.
Yeah, it doesn't quite add up. It doesn't entirely work as a film, but it's an interesting failure, is how I like to put it.
Okay. And you had Ray Walston as Poop Deck Pappy.
Yeah, Popeye's daddy. His long lost daddy. Yeah. So that's fun. So Popeye.
We're talking about a movie from 1980. All right, so yeah, Mighty Wind. Let's get back to this. Sorry.
And songs by Harry Nilsson. So.
Ooh, everybody's talking at me.
Exactly, exactly. And okay, one more little bit of trivia about Popeye that I'm just going to get out there because who knows when we're ever going to cover the movie Popeye on this podcast. They actually built a whole village of Sweet Haven where they shot it in like Malta, I think, or something like that, and that is still standing. It is still a tourist attraction.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh shit!
Yeah.
All right, I gotta.
Well, if you're ever in Malta, go there and check out the Popeye sets, people.
Wow! All right, I gotta call my travel agent.
Yeah, book your ticket now. I mean,
Right.
yeah, you don't want to go during the peak tourist season, of course, but
That's right. You want to go? You want to go after when the crowds have died down.
right, right. So anyway, okay, so we got all the folk singers, and they're reuniting for this big tribute concert. And as I said before, the Main Street Singers, they've reformed as the new Main Street Singers, and they're largely a new group except for Paul Dooley. He's just like the one vestige from the original lineup, and he's just standing there. And apparently, I read this on the Wikipedia page. They say in the on the DVD commentary, Christopher Guest and Eugene Levy said that Paul Dooley's character doesn't actually play any instrument. He can't play the guitar, but just before a performance by the original Main Street Singers, he stained his shirt front and covered it up by holding a guitar for the performance, something he continued to do for all subsequent performances. So, so that's fun.
I didn't notice that until you just said it. It's like now that I think about it, like, oh yeah, he never played the guitar; he just held it.
Yep, he doesn't play the guitar at any point in the movie, that's kind of cool. But then go ahead.
Well, no, I was gonna say yeah. So we're introduced to the new Main Street Singers with the two married couple who head up the group, Terry and Lori Boner, who's John Michael Higgins and
Boner.
Get it?
Because it's a slang term for an erect penis.
Oh, okay. All right, now I get it.
I know. I just got that myself. But yeah, and they're played by the great John Michael Higgins and Jane Lynch, who, I mean, if you're doing a movie that's largely improvised, the way the Christopher Guest mockumentary movies are, these are two people you want to have in your cast.
Yeah, they're the greats.
They are just two of the best comedic improvisers ever, and they are very, very funny in this movie.
I like how John Michael Higgins' character Terry was talking about how he grew up with folk music, and he said, "Yeah, through my wife, I realized that there had been abuse in my family, but it was mostly musical in nature."
Yes, and Laurie has this sort of. She came to the new Main Street Singers through this strange, circuitous route. Like when the original group broke up. Some of them broke away, and they opened up an adult store, like like a porno store, basically. And what was that called? It was called the Three Wise Men's Adult Emporium. And
right.
Laura talks about how she like became connected with them, and then she began to star in the movies that they produced, and she became very popular because she did a certain thing that most other people would not do.
They never say what the thing is, so it's just up to your imagination.
But she just says it with this huge grin, and she just winks at the camera when she did it. And it's all the funnier because it's all just implied. And then she eventually met John Michael Higgins' character of Terry, and they got together, and she joined the group.
Yeah, beautiful story.
So yeah, she's a former porn star who's now in a Christian folk singing group. That old story.
Yeah, that old chestnut. You remember you've heard that before.
And then we find out some of Mitch and Mickey's backstory, where they were like this, famous couple. They were like America's sweethearts, and then they broke up, and Mitch did not take it well. He goes off the deep end, and we see a couple of his solo albums. His solo albums are titled "Cry for Help" and "Calling It Quits," and
I don't mean to laugh at that, but if you see how like insane the album artwork is, it's like,
Yeah.
oh, this is sad, but it's also pretty funny.
On the cover of Calling It Quits, he is literally digging his own grave, and it's so dark you just have to laugh at it. And Eugene Levy, I have to call him out for just one of the best performances in this movie. He is so good, and just the character he constructed. His Mitch is this sort of old, burnt out hippie type, and he just has this very specific cadence and weird, hesitant way of speaking. And he's one of those guys who's just taken enough drugs that it's had this real residual effect. You know, like kind of like Reverend Jim in Taxi or something like that.
Yeah,
And
I heard. I think I remember hearing in an interview, like they asked Eugene Levy about it back when this movie came out, and he said something like, if I believe he said something like, "Oh yeah, I was just doing an Ozzy Osbourne impression."
yes, okay, I can very much see that. Yeah, yeah, it's very much Ozzy Osbourne, and he's got like the big thick glasses that you expect Eugene Levy to usually have, and he's got this great wig with this just sort of gray hair, and then he's got like one of those strip beard things that is like the exact same thickness as his eyebrows. So
Oh yeah, like the
he's
like a
got
soul,
yeah,
like a soul patch, right?
yeah. Is it still a soul patch when it goes all the way down your chin? I don't know.
Hmm. I'm gonna have to look into that.
I don't know what that particular configuration of facial hair is called, but it looks good on Eugene Levy. He's got a good face for it.
Right, and yeah, he's the maestro. Like the way he kind of, like you said, like the way he plays his character is really, really pretty hilarious.
Yeah, yeah, and he's just like throughout the entire movie, he never seems like he's quite all there, and he's just really fun to watch. And we see him. He gets back together with Mickey. Mickey is now married and living in the suburbs, and her husband is Leonard Crabbe, I believe the character's
Yeah,
name was.
right.
Yeah, who's this sort of tweedy English guy who's really into model trains, and he has a catheter business, and he's very eager
Yeah,
to talk about that over meals.
yeah. Like when Mitch asked him, "Oh, what do you do?" He's like, "Oh, well, I'm in the catheter business." He went so in depth into the whole world of catheters and constipation and people with leakage. Like
And
he really
yeah,
loves talking
yeah.
about this.
And he's in incontinence and in general, and he's like, yeah, so basically every 18 seconds a new incontinent person is born. and and Catherine O'Hara, who's also great in this movie, she has one of my favorite lines in the movie because he's doing this over lunch, and she just goes, "You know what? This might be better dessert talk." um,
Yeah, this is pretty. It's like a bunch of poop jokes, but I see this as being highbrow poop jokes.
yes, yes, this is the highest of highbrow poop jokes. We find out a little more of Mitch and Mickey's backstory. Mitch, they met when they were both folkies in like the Village, I think, in the early '60s, and Mitch like defended Mickey's honor when she and her group was being heckled by this drunk guy in a bar, and Mitch got horribly beat up and was put into the hospital, and Mickey came and visited him in there, and romance blossomed.
Yes, and honestly, and they played some of their old songs, and we'll probably talk about this later, but like, dude, the soundtrack to this album is really fantastic. Like the songs in this movie and on the soundtrack are like genuinely really good songs. Like I get like
Yeah.
the Mitch and Mickey songs. Like I don't mind telling you, I sometimes get like emotional, tear up a little bit at some of those songs. It's like
It's a great soundtrack, yeah. And the highlight I think is that song, the Mitch and Mickey song, "A Kiss at the End of the Rainbow," which that song has a really interesting backstory to it. It's something that Michael McKean co-wrote with his wife Annette O'Toole. They in the aftermath of the September 11th attacks, they of course, nobody could fly in the country for several days. I forget how long flights were grounded for, but Annette O'Toole had to get back. She had to get from LA back to Vancouver because she was shooting the show Smallville at the time, where she played Martha Kent. And so, since they couldn't fly, they drove from LA up to Vancouver, and the two of them wrote this song on the way. And,
wow.
Yeah. Isn't that a neat story?
Yeah, I had no idea. Did Michael McKean write most of the songs for the bands in this on this project?
He wrote a lot of them. Let's see. He has. I've got the soundtrack listing. He has credits on, or co-writing credits on Old Joe's Place, Just That Kind of Day, Never Did No Wanderin', Fair Away, The Good Book Song, Never Did No Wanderin'. There were a couple versions of that in the movie. Blood on the Coal, Potatoes in the Paddy Wagon, and A Kiss at the End of the Rainbow, and the title song of Mighty Wind. So yeah, Michael McKean is all over this album, folks.
Wow.
Yeah.
Dude's like a songwriting dynamo.
Talented guy. I mean, he's an amazing actor. He's a great singer and a really good songwriter too.
He's not just Lenny from Laverne and Shirley, people.
He is not. He is also Mr. Green from Clue. He's also Chuck McGill from Better Call Saul. He's David St. Hubbins from Spinal Tap. I mean, Michael McKean. I can't say enough good things about Michael McKean. He is amazing.
Shake, rattle, and roll. I don't know why that came to me.
If you don't love Michael McKean, I think it's safe to say you're just a horrible person.
Yeah, that's fair. That's not going overboard.
Yeah, no, you know who hates Michael McKean? Assholes. That's who hates Michael McKean.
That's right. I co-sign on that.
Yeah, I'm drawing a line in the sand right now. If you dislike Michael McKean, there's something wrong with you.
You're just a garbage person.
You are. I mean, yeah, Annette O'Toole, she's not going to marry no trash.
That's right.
So, I would really love to just someday have dinner with Michael McKean and Annette O'Toole. I bet that would be a really fun evening. They seem just light.
Oh, dude! And then afterwards, they just pull out the acoustic guitars. Hey, you want to sing some folk songs? And then you got.
They don't even have to do that. They can just regale me with stories of their great acting careers. I mean, I'm sure that would be a fascinating evening.
Dude, I'm sure he's got some great Laverne and Shirley stories. Just sure. On deck.
Exactly. So what else?
We haven't talked about the Folksmen yet. How?
Yeah. Okay. Let's get into the Folksmen.
I mean, just visually, just Harry Shearer with that bald head and that Abraham Lincoln beard. I mean, that's a choice.
He's got one of those beards that, it is in the Abraham Lincoln style, but it doesn't really cover any of his chin. The whole beard is pretty much under his chin. So it's a very unusual style, but it's probably a not uncommon style of beard among folk musicians in the 1960s.
It's like a beard bib.
Yes, it's a beard bib. Yes, exactly. And I love Christopher Guest's look in the Folksmen too, because he's got his hair kind of grown out. He's kind of bald up top, but it's growing out on the sides, and then he's got a mustache, and they look like the old folkies hippies that they are.
Yeah, it's something else. I mean, only of Michael McKean's character Jerry, he's the only kind of normal looking one. The other two guys are just wow, you're really going for it.
Well, Michael McKean's the center, and he allows the other two to get a little more cartoonish and exaggerated. And I mean, maybe a little similar to Spinal Tap. And it's the Folksmen actually, they predate this movie. They actually debuted the Folksmen on an episode of Saturday Night Live when Michael McKean hosted in November of 1984. And it was the same year that Spinal Tap was out, but they decided not to do a Spinal Tap thing on the show. So they did a folk trio, loosely based on the Kingston Trio.
Oh, wow. I guess it was just an idea that just had lying around that they were just kind of playing around with.
Yeah, I think they just decided to do something different and have a little fun. And an interesting thing is they've actually they've been their own opening act for Spinal Tap concerts as the Folksmen. And in some instances, they've gotten booed off the stage as the Folksmen by people who they either didn't get the joke or they were super going along with the joke. I don't know which one it was.
So, okay, so they were a folk group opening up for like a heavy metal group, but they were
Yeah.
both the same group.
Yes.
That
Yeah.
is, I commend that. That is a beautiful thing right there.
That's a whole nother level of meta right there. That's like mirrors reflecting mirrors reflecting mirrors. It's like a whole hall of mirrors, and you're just, yeah.
That's Inception right there. Like the top is spinning.
Exactly. The city is folding in on itself, and Joseph Gordon-Levitt is running up walls and having a fight in a hallway, and Ellen Page is doing something too that I forget.
And I'm watching all this just being very confused.
Yes. It's a dream inside of a dream inside of another dream.
Yeah, I like that movie, but like
it's another dude.
You're a dude who don't know what dude he is. Good times.
And according to Wikipedia, the Folksmen also appeared in Spinal Tap's 1992 TV special, The Return of Spinal Tap. So,
far out.
Yeah, and apparently A Mighty Wind grew out of the original concept was them to just do a movie about the Folksmen, kind of how This Is Spinal Tap is about Spinal Tap, but they decided to expand it along the way and introduce some other folk groups. So,
far out.
Yeah.
Not bad. All right, so now that we know, I think we talked about all the groups involved with it. I mean, I feel remiss if we didn't talk about the scene with the great Fred Willard as the new Main Street Singers manager.
Yeah. And Mike LaFontaine, I believe his name is.
Yeah, like the first sentence out of his mouth is like, "Hey, Mike LaFontaine here," and then he like has like a fart machine in his hand and he presses that. And then he goes, comics constant companion.
Yeah. And he's a guy who was on a TV show that lasted all of one season, and he's like, and I had a catchphrase, "What happened?" And he still like breaks that out at every opportunity, even when there's not an opportunity, he breaks it out. And he had other catchphrases that didn't go as big, like "I got a real wet wagon," and "I don't think so."
I can't do my work.
Yeah, and like most of Fred Willard's characters, he is just totally ignorant and oblivious of how much of an ass he's being at any given moment. But in his own mind, he is hilarious, and that was the genius of Fred Willard. Is he's just so wonderfully unfunny that he becomes funny again. He circles back around to funny.
Yeah, I love how Fred Willard's his character Mike in this movie. He has like spiky blonde hair, like Guy Fieri, and like I like the whole thing, and no one mentions it or comments on it. He just has it, and like part of me thinks, was that Fred's choice or was that part of the script or what was that?
I mean, it was. I think in a movie like this, where like they know the story and they know like the history of the groups, but they improvise all the dialogue. I think the actors had a lot of input into their characters, so I would not be surprised if that hair was Fred Willard's choice.
I respect that man more and more every day.
Yeah, he was a treasure. He was a gift. And there are some other behind the scenes people we should mention. There are two other kids in the Steinblum family. There's Elliot and Naomi Steinblum, played by Don Lake and Deborah Thieker, and they don't really get into it, but it's obvious that the Steinblum siblings do not have a good relationship with each other. And Don Lake's character of Elliot in particular, he is completely indifferent to folk music. He jokes like, "Oh yeah, I moved to North Dakota to get as far away from it as possible." And this is skipping ahead a bit, but during the final concert, you see him like literally like flipping through the program, just like you do when you're utterly bored by a performance. And he's sitting on the front row, and a tribute to his father.
Yeah, and meanwhile, his sister Naomi is like she seems like a very emotional person. Like she's like kind of breaks down into tears at every moment. Just like she's like crying and just hysterical at the end of this, at the last concert. And I think also at one point when all the Steinblum kids talk on camera, they say, "Yeah, we don't get together that much. We don't meet or talk that much." And I think Naomi is like, "Yeah, we don't have to."
Yeah,
Oh,
it's just a whole lot of repression going on in this family. They do not talk things out. They bury those problems deep inside. Um,
yeah. At one point, Naomi is just like crying there in the interview, and the other two kids are just like, just let her get it out. Just don't.
yeah, yeah. And they don't even comfort her. They don't even put like a hand on the shoulder, like they're there.
It says a lot. It says a lot.
Yeah, yeah. And we also have Ed Begley Jr. popping up as Lars Olfen, who runs a public broadcasting network, PBN. And he is, and this is another weird character quirk that is never explained. He's a Swedish guy who, for some reason, used all sorts of Yiddish and Jewish slang.
I think because I thought that was because maybe because he was talking to when he's talking to Jonathan Steinblum, and
Uh-huh.
because Steinblum, of course, he's Jewish, so like maybe he just did that, like, oh yeah, I understand what you're going through, the nachas I'm feeling because your father was like mushpoka to me.
Oh, so that was a weird bonding thing. I thought it was just something that he did randomly, but maybe you're right. I don't know.
I don't know, but either way, that I would say that scene was like the second funniest thing. It was because it was just a nonstop rolling of like all these Yiddish words, like it's a mitzvah. It was a valdachai.
Yeah, and yeah, it's just very funny to see Ed Begley Jr. speaking Yiddish. That is some comic gold right there.
I still talk like that sometimes, because like I've seen this movie so many times. Like when I'm with my friends, I'll say something like, "Oh, the nachas I'm feeling right now." So my friends are like, "Yeah," my friends are like, What was that?"
Sure, sure. And let's see, we also have let's see, another couple members of the Christopher Guest Repertoire Company, Larry Miller, the late great Larry Miller, and Jennifer Coolidge as Wally Fenton and Amber Cole, and they're like backers of the show, I think.
I know they work in PR.
That's right. They work in PR, and yeah, they're like the events people, and yeah, and they're not in the movie too much because, well, I think they had like some bigger parts in some of the other guest movies, but the accent that Jennifer Coolidge selected for her character, it's such an odd yet so wonderfully distinct accent. It's really something else.
Yeah, it's like I want to say it's like Moira Rose from Schitt's Creek, but it's not quite that. It's like I can't describe, like, it's like an odd accent, but
Mm-hmm.
it's never commented on. It's just like a character choice by her, but like she just goes with this accent, and at no point you're thinking, why is she? Where's that from? What
Yeah,
country is that from?
yeah, yeah. She's obviously like some trophy wife from some country somewhere, but and so she doesn't have much of a thought in her head, but she tries. um, but very funny in their limited amount of screen time.
Yeah,
Um,
it's a small thing, but it's pretty
yeah,
hilarious.
yeah, they make the most of their screen time, definitely. And we see, and as the movie goes on, it develops that this is going to be a live televised event. They were originally just planning to record the concert and broadcast it later, but now it's going to be live because that's more excitement, more pressure, and some of the participating musicians get some stage fright because, like Mitch and Mickey, they have not performed together or at all in probably decades by this point. So yeah, it's a really nerve wracking thing for them.
Yeah, they kind of coached it in thinking that maybe something would happen during their performance because, like you said, like they haven't performed together in years, they haven't talked to each other in years, and they also
Mm-hmm.
sort of talk about how Mitch, he's been hospitalized and medicated, and they also allude to he has like a rage problem, and like he's like very unpredictable and whatnot. So, like, part of me thought that, is he going to fly off the handle like during the performance or before it? And I don't know. It was very tense, very tense.
Yeah, yeah. It's we don't know what's going to happen. Um, and there's another great scene where the new Main Street Singers, they're being honored by the deputy mayor of New York, and Fred Willard just derails the ceremony in a wonderful way.
Oh yeah. That was a great scene.
Just telling off-color jokes during the ceremony. He talks about like he addresses the deputy mayor as Your Honor, and then he tells a joke about like being at an orgy, and it's like, hey, have you seen my wife? Well, Your Honor. and, and Fred Willard, he just thinks he's hilarious at any given time. And there's like another scene where he's makes this asinine suggestion to the new Main Street Singers that suggesting that they be splashed with water during their performance, and then he like whispers into John Michael Higgins' ear, and he's whispering something perverted about the women getting splashed with water, and
yeah, again, it's something like you never hear what he says, but it's pretty gross.
Yeah, but the expression on John Michael Higgins' face is enough to tell you, like, it's awful.
Oh, man. And they also had this other sort of subplot with the Main Street Singers about how Terry and Laurie are kind of their religious practices. They're in this group called Wink, which is Witches in Nature's Color.
Yeah, they worship color. And, it's sort of this weird, I guess you could call it a cult. I don't know. But
it's not a cult.
Okay.
But they do. It's like, you hear witches, you think, people in pointy hats. Well, I mean, they do wear pointy hats, but
yes,
it's different.
But the rest is just a horrible stereotype.
Yeah, they don't have brooms.
Right. And so we finally get to the big concert, and we find out that that Bob Balaban's character of what was his character's name again? Jonathan,
right?
Steinblum. He is just utterly clueless. He does not know how any of the stage stuff works. He's criticizing like the backdrops on the stage literally an hour before the performance. He's concerned about the apple blossoms possibly poking out somebody's eye if they get too close to them in the lobby. And he is just so out of his element. It's hilarious.
Like he's really bothering the events coordinator at this is being held at Town Hall, which is a historic venue in the city. And he's really like bothering the events coordinator. I forget the name of the guy who's playing.
It was Mitch Hitchcock, I believe.
Yes, that's it. Mitch Hitchcock was also in.
Michael Hitchcock as Lawrence E. Turpin.
Yes,
who's the events liaison at Town Hall.
Right, that's it. He was in Bridesmaids, which we've talked about, and he was also in Best in Show. And so like basically like it's him kind of like being overly cautious and overly kind of naggy about everything in the set. Like they have like a big stand-in or a big set design of a banjo and a guitar, and Bob Balaban's character just keeps calling it furniture. It's like, does this furniture look 3D because it's flat here, so like won't it look flat out there? And it's like, it's called a set, it's not furniture. It's like, all right, so why is the furniture next to this light post? Is this a real working light post? Can something fake be next to something that's not fake?
Yeah.
It's a hilarious ball busting scene.
Yeah, and he gets so irritating that Michael Hitchcock finally just like beans him on the back of the head. He just slaps him on the head to get him to shut up for a moment. So when the concert finally starts, it starts out with the new Main Street Singers. They come out and they are doing their thing, and they sing one of the Folksmen's trademark songs, "Never Did No Wanderin'." And we got to the Folksmen just down in their dressing room listening to the feed of the show, and they're just like, what the hell are they doing? What the hell? And because that's what they were planning to open their set with, and now obviously they can't do that because the other group has just sort of co-opted their song.
Yeah, because I mean, as we learn, before this there was like a sort of a party that had all the folk acts and everybody together to celebrate the show, but we learned like Michael McKean's character Jerry, he just sees the new Main Street Singers as like a kind of commercialized version of folk. They're not real folk. They're like mainstream folk.
Yeah, he doesn't have any respect for them. And when the folksmen are down back in their dressing room and they're just kind of having a powwow deciding what to do, how they're going to open their set now, Harry Shearer just says like, "Well, we could just be bold and just do Wandering," and Michael McKean just looks at him like he grew another head, and he's like, "Have you been gone for the last couple minutes? It's being done. It's being butchered out there on stage right now." And Harry Shearer's like, no, we give the audience a choice. Like they can do like their toothpaste commercial, and we can do like the real version,
the real raw, rugged folks music.
Exactly. So yeah, but it's just very funny, and of course, like the new Main Street singers are just totally oblivious that they've done anything that could ever possibly offend. I mean, it obviously never entered their heads that the folksmen might want to do one of their own songs at this big tribute concert.
It's very true. Very true.
And meanwhile, Mitch and Mickey, he goes out of town hall for some air, and we see him just sort of wandering New York City, and then he's lost for a while, and we don't know what has become of Mitch.
Yeah, I mean, I guess this is what everybody thought might happen because, like, you know, throughout the whole movie up to this point, like Mitch was kind of seen as like the loose cannon. Like you don't know if he's totally stable. You don't like. There's a good chance he might do something on the day of the show, and this seems to be it.
Yeah. And he's just wandering around, and this happens while the folksmen are on stage. So the folksmen have to fill; they have to extend their set because we obviously can't have Mitch and Mickey go on when one half of the duo was missing, and so they are just vamping like their lives depend on it, and so they do another couple of numbers more than they expected to.
Yeah, and at the very end, when they have, like you said, when they have to stretch, I think it was Christopher Guest character Alan who says, you know, we'd like to play another song for you called "The Skeletons of Quinto," and you can just see the look on Jerry's face, Michael McKean's character, like he's like very like, oh, this song, god damn it, because he doesn't want to do it because it's like a song about the Civil War, like the Spanish Civil War, and it's like a very down song, and and you can see like the other two guys are into it, but he doesn't want to do it, and that's just pretty hilarious. And like as they're about to do it, like Harry Shearer gives us like very somber speech about the war, and like how many Spaniards lost their lives during this time, and then once they find Mitch, one of the stagehands come out on stage and whispers in his ear, and then like mid sentence as he's talking, he just says, "Good night, everybody," and then they did just leave.
So we get the long, drawn-out intro to this song, and then it's just he's signaled by the stagehand, and then it's like, "All right, that's it for us. Good night." And I mean, as people who've like performed on stage, I think we can certainly both relate to that. Is like you've had times where you've had to vamp on stage.
Yeah, but once you can get off stage, you get off stage.
Yeah, and it is oh god, it is just a slow death when you are literally out of material and you still have to just vamp. I had to do that like a few months ago when at some place where we both performed, where we were both at Characters, and I was performing during a comedy contest, and I was performing while the judges were like tabulating the results. And I had to go on about 10 minutes longer than I expected to. So, I like burned through my set, and then I was like, okay, I guess they're not ready yet. I guess I'm just doing crowd work for the next 10 minutes.
Where are you from? What do you do? Where are you from? What do you do?
Where are you from? What do you do? Ask each individual audience member, and yeah.
Where are you from? What do you do?
Yeah. So, you go through the audience, you find out who you can play with, and you do what you can out of it.
Yeah, you do what you can. So then once Mitch is found, he was wandering the streets looking for a rose because, they talked about it earlier, but when Mitch got beaten up, all those years ago, he was given a rose while he was in a hospital bed by Mickey. And so the rose is like very symbolic throughout their relationship.
Yes. And so he comes back with a rose for Mickey, and then And then he's like, "Oh, are we on?" And yeah, again, Mitch is not quite all there, but he is Dane Bramaged, as they say.
Oh, I like that.
But they go on stage and they sing their trademark song, "Kiss at the End of the Rainbow," and there's a neat thing where it cuts back down to the folksmen in their dressing room, and Michael McKean just goes, "Oh, this is that really pretty song, the one with the kiss in it." And he's like, "Oh, can you turn that up?" And it's kind of funny if you know that Michael McKean co-wrote this song, because they cut to his character going, "Oh, this is that really pretty song."
Wow, I didn't realize that. Yeah, like wow, this song's great. Wow,
yeah, this is great. You should all buy this single and give the songwriter some royalties, folks.
Yeah. You should go buy some at your local Tower Records, where it's half off.
Yes, because that Laverne and Shirley, those Laverne and Shirley residuals don't last forever, folks.
They do not.
Michael McKean needs some cheddar.
Mm-hmm. Making his dreams come true for me.
That's right. And then we reach the big climax of A Kiss at the End of the Rainbow, the part where Mitch and Mickey always had a kiss at the end that the audience always responded to. And nobody knows if they're going to do it because they, of course, are not a couple anymore. Mickey is married to someone else. And just on impulse, Mitch kisses Mickey. And it's, of course, a big moment that people respond to. And then we have the big group finish on the title song, "A Mighty Wind," and which is another really catchy, cool folk song.
Yeah, it's a very rousing it's a very, very rousing, Americana type of folk song. Mm-hmm. I really I genuinely get moved by it. And then, but I saw somebody made on my Facebook page. Somebody says is this song like a blowjob joke? Because it's blowing you and me. Is that?
Yeah. You know what? That lyric, it's towards the end. They're like, oh, it's blowing the wind of freedom. It's blowing you and me. And it's like, how did that lyric never jump out to me before? I mean, I never got the double entendre in that song before. But yeah.
But I mean, it's a genuinely beautiful song.
Yeah, it is a very pretty song, but it's. Oh, and we should give a special shout out to somebody we haven't mentioned yet. Is a Parker Posey, who's playing one of the new Main Street Singers. She's one of the next generation group, and her character is named Sissy Knox. Yeah, and her performance is really great. She does that thing where she's just sort of exaggeratedly singing everything, and she's just out all the lyrics, and she's real smiley and bubbly and perky, and it's just on the side of annoying because she's just really too much.
Yeah, I mean, there's that one scene where she's in Orlando and she's performing in front of a room full of school kids, grade school kids, and she's and she's kind of rocking out in this not a ukulele, but the smallish guitar, and the kids look so uninterested. But she's she has a big smile on her face, woo, this rocks. And the kids are sure.
And I actually learned on the IMDb trivia page, she actually learned how to play the mandolin for this role. So that's pretty cool. All the songs were written by Eugene Levy, Christopher Guest, and the other actors in the cast, and everyone played all their own instruments. So that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, and they all did their own singing?
Yeah, I believe so. John Michael Higgins actually wrote all the vocal arrangements for the new Main Street Singers. It says here on IMDb, originally the group was going to be a 9-piece ensemble that sang in unison, with everyone singing the same part, but it was decided to give Higgins free reign with it. So he did some really nice arrangements.
Man, dude, Christopher Guest really lets his actors just do free range to do what they do.
Yeah. I mean, he gathers some talented people together. I mean, he really knows what he's doing, man.
Absolutely. Wow. All right, and so then the concert ends with this big rousing song, "A Mighty Wind," which is a fantastic song, and the show is a hit. It goes off pretty seamlessly, and then they cut to 6 months later to show what all the groups are doing since then.
Yeah. we have a little epilogue, and we have Fred Willard who's talking about all the great, what a hit the concert was, and all the great new opportunities he's getting for the new Main Street Singers that he's pitching, and he's pitched this idea of the new Main Street Singers as Supreme Court justices. So during the day, they judge cases in the Supreme Court, and then by night they all go home to this home that they all share together, and they sing folk songs together.
Right. He pitched the idea because he thought that there were like 12 Supreme Court judges, but it turned out there's only 9. He doesn't know if it's a budget thing or what.
Yeah. It just, I mean, that's how wonderfully ignorant Fred Willard's character is.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just great. And honestly, if the new Main Street Singers were our Supreme Court justices, would we be any worse off than we are today? Probably not.
Yeah, we'd be better off musically.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
And then we pick up with Mickey at a trade show, a medical trade show for SureFlow, which is her husband's catheter product. And she's resumed her music career. She's like playing a song about a jingle for SureFlow on her dulcimer, and
she's making a song about like penis clamps and whatnot.
Yeah, but she's rediscovered her muse, and she's fulfilled as a musician once again. But she's still a bit distressed about Mitch, because Mitch took the kiss the wrong way, and she feels bad by it, but she doesn't feel like she led him on. And we discover that Mitch, he is back in the psychiatric hospital.
Yeah.
And but he's talking about what a creatively fertile period it is for him. He's having ideas faster than he can write them down.
Yeah, and then he also feels bad, like he thought he might have led Mickey on, but like he doesn't, So like they both feel like they led each other on, but they both seem to be happy.
Yeah, I mean, as happy as you can be in a psychiatric hospital, I would say Mitch is that.
Psychiatric happy.
And then we pick up on the Folksmen, and they're playing at a casino. And the big joke there is that Harry Shearer, who is the deepest voice in the trio, he was the bass in the performance. He plays the upright bass, and he's the bass voice. The joke there is that out of nowhere, he has transitioned, and he has now become a woman. And he's like, I didn't want to spend the rest of my life as a bold folk singer. I wanted to spend the rest of my life playing with these two, but do it as a woman. So he's in a blonde wig and a floral print dress now.
Yeah, that came out of nowhere.
Really came out of nowhere. There is no foreshadowing for this at all. Like the closest thing we had to foreshadowing is we find out that he uses like cream on his face, and he likes to take care of himself that way. But they just do it for the gag at the end of Harry Shearer being in drag and in a dress.
Yeah, that was wow.
This joke probably hasn't aged the best in the 17 years since this movie came out, you know?
Yeah, this movie was almost cancel proof until the very end.
Yeah, because I mean, like up until now, the joke is all just about people's behavior, really, and here the joke at the very end is just like, hey, he became a woman. Haha, isn't that funny?
Anyway, Good night, everybody.
And the joke is like he's still singing all the same deep parts, but he's now doing it as a woman. And the weird thing is that they actually continued this gag past the movie. The Harry Shearer, Michael McKean, and Christopher Guest appeared as the Folksmen on an episode of Late Night with Conan O'Brien, and they sang a cover of the Rolling Stones' "Start Me Up." And Harry Shearer, still in drag, still in the blonde wig, still in a dress. So they continued that gag past the movie, that was something else.
Commit to the bit.
Yeah, they committed to the bit. But I do have to say, beyond the joke of Harry Shearer's character transitioning, not aging especially well, it's a very funny appearance on Conan. You have to hear the arrangement they put on the Rolling Stones' "Start Me Up."
Yeah,
Especially at the end when they're getting to the lyric, "You make a dead man come." Um,
dude, I never realized that was the lyric in that song until I heard it. I heard them sing it. Then I was like, wait,
yep,
what?
yep.
How come no one said anything about like what the hell? That seems inappropriate.
I did once when I heard that song on the radio, and as the "Start Me Up" was fading out at the end. The DJ had a little fun with it, where Mick Jagger sang, "You make a grown man cry." The DJ just said really quickly, "That's pretty easy to do." And then Mick Jagger sings, "You make you make a dead man come," and then the DJ goes, "That's somewhat harder to do."
That's a little trickier.
Yep, having a little fun with that. But that's a mighty wind.
It's a fantastic movie. One of my favorite Fred Willard movies, I think I'd say.
Yeah.
And guys, check it out. If it's it's predominantly improv movie, mostly improvised, but it's done by some of the best improvers like you'll ever see. And like I can't say enough good things about this movie. It's like a solid movie, a solid soundtrack. Like the soundtrack, like it kicks ass. I'll just say that.
Yep. It slaps, as the kids say.
Yeah. It's a bop, as the kids say.
Yeah. I think we use that, right? I don't know.
Yeah. And that's a mighty win.
That is a mighty win. Let me see if is there any other cool trivia that we didn't note about it. I think we covered most everything. Oh wait, here's one thing. Mickey's new husband is a model train enthusiast with only one train. This is because when the filmmakers went to the home, which supposedly contained an impressive train setup, all the trains themselves were broken or otherwise unusable. The engine seen moving in the movie is being pulled by dental floss through Crabtown. So keep an eye out for that.
Okay.
And on the DVD, they have all sorts of special features with the full-length musical performances, including the full reunion concert, and you can watch it as it would have appeared on TV in the world of the movie. So,
far out, guys, check it out.
So that's neat. So worth seeing. It's always fun when Christopher Guest gets the gang together and puts on a show. So I enjoyed that quite a bit.
Hear, hear.
Yep, fun movie to revisit.
Absolutely, it was definitely put a smile on my face in these uncertain times.
Yes. So thumbs up from Darren and John for a mighty wind.
Absolutely. We don't have much in the way of Twitter news, so I mean, basically, we just got some tweets about the Conan performance, which we talked about, and the original
SNL performance. Yeah. I think it's funny that the folksmen had gone back almost 20 years by the time they did this movie, that's something else. That's commitment to the bit.
Yeah, like I didn't even know about that, their original appearance in '84 until this movie came out.
Yeah. I wasn't watching SNL as much in November of '84, so that was like probably just around the time I first saw the show. It was somewhere in that season. So. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's our review, guys.
We don't have any new reviews on the podcast to read out. So if you want to review the podcast, please bring them at us. Good or bad. We prefer good. We prefer a 5-star review. That always helps out the podcast. But we like to hear your feedback. So please do that. And if you want to follow the show, you can follow us at SNL Nerds Show on Twitter. And you can follow our personal pages. I'm at Trumbull Comic, TRUMBULL, and the word comic.
I'm at Darren Credible, DARIN Credible, on Twitter and Instagram.
Yes. And so next week, I think we're going to continue in our fun, silly escapism vein, and we're going to continue a movie. We watched the first one a few months back, but we're going to go back and watch the second one now. And we're going to do, would you say it's a classic?
Depends on who you ask. I'll say.
Okay. We're on the fence about whether this is a classic or not, but it is a well-known comedy movie starring another SNL veteran, an SNL great, Mr. Michael Myers in Austin Powers, The Spy Who Shagged Me.
Yeah, baby, yeah.
Yeah, so we're going to go back to the swinging 60s and the nutty 90s and have fun with that. And that'll be fun. It's Mike Myers, Heather Graham, Mike Myers, and Vern Troyer, and Michael York, and Rob Lowe, and all sorts of fun stuff.
Seth Green's in there somewhere.
Seth Green, yes. So that'll be fun.
Mm-hmm. It'll be a hoot and a half.
Yeah, hoot and a half. Yes, that's what we're going to do. And that is still streaming on Netflix, so please join us in a rewatch of Austin Powers, The Spy Who Shagged Me.
Mm-hmm. Sexy.
Yep. Sexy. Get our mojos working again.
Indeed. Oh, God. So, guys, until then, stay safe. Just be careful of all the madness out there.
Yeah.
And, we'll join us again for a little silliness in these crazy times.
Yes. And so, yeah, take care of yourselves, and until then, nerds out.
This has been a non-productive media presentation. Executive producer Frank Hablawi. This program and many others like it on the Non-Productive Network is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives license. Please share it, but ask before trying to change it or sell it. For more information, visit non-productive.com.